What's up, friends? Today we are going to be having a recap video of the Esk8Con event. And you're probably thinking, oh no, another sitting and talking video. I'm going to try and put in some B-roll to make it a little bit more interesting. But if you care about how the event at Esk8Con went, stay tuned for this whole video. Alright, so first off, if you hear any whining noise in the background, my 3D printer is running just over here. So sorry about that, but it is what it is. This is when I wanted to record the video, so we're gonna do it now. Anyway, we've got a couple things to get through in this video. I may or may not do them in the order that I say right now, but I'm gonna try and get through all of them. So first thing, the venue and kind of how the situation was with that, the spacing and the amenities and all that. We'll talk about the racetrack, how that went or didn't go. We'll talk about the vendors and what you can do with them. And then we'll talk a little bit at the end about the group ride, but that's kind of separate from the actual event, so it's not as relevant. So first off, the actual venue. Now, this event was hosted at Gene Woods Racing Experience in Las Vegas, Nevada. And the Gene Woods Racing Experience was an awesome venue, and the staff there were super cool too. They really loved what we were doing. They were happy with how the Esk8 community treated them, and it was just a really great experience working with the people at the track. Now, the track is attached to a large building, which I believe has some conference area, and it also has a gigantic parking lot, which our small convention only took a little tiny bit of. So there's a lot of space at this venue for the amount of attendees to grow. Not so much for the outside vendors to grow, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So the venue itself was awesome. There was a small-ish courtyard area where all of the venues were clustered together, which actually overlooks the racetrack, which was pretty convenient. There were some concrete bleachers right next to the racetrack, which people could sit on to watch the races and see what was going on, as well as a sort of elevated area above the racetrack where you could see out over the entire thing. And if you've seen some video clips of the racing and stuff, you probably will have seen some shots over that balcony-esque area. So the venue itself was pretty good. The people were really nice there. The venue has a somewhat indoor area where all the carts are stored. And in order to get to the racetrack, you take your board from the vendor courtyard area and you can ride it straight down through the inside right onto the track. And that was definitely pretty convenient for getting onto and off of the racetrack. No going downstairs or anything like that, having to carry your monstrosity of a board anywhere. And yeah, that worked out really well, and people seemed to be pretty happy with being able to get on the track whenever they wanted during the open racing or free ride times. Now, the venue had a couple bathrooms inside, definitely small, not super accessible, but there were also porta potties available for some people. I know someone mentioned that they thought there weren't such great facilities there, which is fine. You know, every venue is going to have its ups and downs, but yeah. So the next thing I would say is about the actual amenities, or sorry, the concessions and food and stuff at the venue. This is kind of partly an event thing and partly a venue thing. So in the internal, or the large building that houses the go-karts, they have two entrances, and one of those entrances they had the concession stand where they were selling snacks and pizza and hot dogs as well as beverages. These were all priced really well, so thank you to Mike Beard for making those definitely a reasonable price. Most things were $1 or a little bit more, and definitely a accessible amount of food. I would say that when this happens again next year, they should definitely consider having some real food trucks in addition to the hot dogs and pizza, because there just wasn't that many options. And you know, if somebody has some dietary restrictions, that could be difficult for them. But there were supposed to be food trucks this year. Maybe they canceled or something, or I don't really know, but hopefully next year they'll have some more options. In close correlation with the venue is the actual racetrack. So the racetrack is really part of the venue. Since this is a go-kart racing experience place, this is one of their most important features. Now, this track is an extremely technical track, and I had the opportunity to ride on it a few times, so I'll put some footage of my short ride through of the track. This track is very technical, like I said. There's a lot of really sharp turns on it. There are banked turns, which I thought was cool. And some boards definitely would have more of a struggle on this track than others. I know in particular, the Cali XLR, the new gigantic board, had a little bit of a struggle actually making some of the turns on there, as that's more of like a street cruiser board than a very maneuverable one. My board, my mountain board with Apex Airs, did just fine on this track. I thought the track was cool. I thought it was really interesting layout, and definitely biased towards rider skill over board capabilities, because we had people on this track racing boosted boards that did really, really well, and we had people on this track racing stooge boards that also did well, but they were a little bit more restricted compared to something that has a much higher top speed. I would say the top speed for this track was about 25 miles an hour, just because of how short the straightaways were between each of the turns. Now, of course, this is a go-kart track, so it's to be expected that you would have a lot of technical turns, because go-karts are meant to drift around, and it's generally in the interest of the track owner to keep the people in the go-kart safe by not allowing too high of a top speed. Now, I think the track was great, except for one major issue, and that is grip. Now, I know this track was surfaced recently, but there's go-karts on it every day. The rubber builds up and kind of polishes the track. Again, this is a benefit for go-karts because it means you can drift them a little bit easier, and that's definitely in the interest of the track owner. But for some of the Esk8 wheels out there, it just is not cutting it. And normally the Stooge racing wheels, which are like, I think it's a rubber urethane compound sort of thing, they just weren't having any grip. And those normally have a ton of grip. So it was really interesting to see how people struggled with being able to stay on the track with their turns, and it's definitely something to be considered. And there was a little bit of track prep done before the racing on Sunday, and Stooge came out and used corn syrup to apply it to the track, which is interesting. I never heard of that technique before, but the people at the venue were super cool. They let the Stooge team stay late to prepare the track for the Sunday racing, and early morning Sunday, the track was great, apparently. I didn't ride it then, but apparently the grip was really good, and people were sticking to the track. It was really great. And then unfortunate circumstances came along, and there was some sand that blew through and really dusted the entire track. And for the actual races, it ended up being more slippery than people would have liked. I think there are some ways that we can get around this for next year if we're at the same venue. Maybe having some volunteers be able to sweep the track, or blowers or something like that. I don't really know. I'm not the coordinator, but I think this grip issue could be solved, and then you're left with a very technical track that requires a lot of rider skill to get through, and in general was a pretty good time. So with the small issues with the racing track aside, I think most people had a really good time on the track, getting to try out boards and getting to test out their own board to its limits. So with that, we'll move into the vendor section, and there were quite a few vendors at this event. I think it was somewhere in the number of 15 different kinds of vendors from lots of different parts of Esk8. So we had some safety gear vendors, Nobleman Tech, Flatland 3D, Beyond Riders, and I think that was all. But we got those. We had Shred Lights out there. We had Voltaic Motion, I think that's how you say it. They rent out e-boards. They were letting people try a whole bunch of them, which was super cool. They even had a Cali XLR there. I didn't get the chance to try it, but hopefully next time I will be able to do that. They had Find Out Customs there. He makes some really cool decks and enclosures. They had Super Beast, Boreas Industries. There was some people from a EUC community there. I forget what they were called. I'll put it on the screen or whatever. There was Flux Movement there. In general, there was quite a few vendors, and it was a really good time to be able to talk to all these people. The Stooge Race Boards was there. We got to look at their drivetrains and their trucks and the decks and stuff, which was super awesome. A lot of people don't get a chance to see that stuff in person. Hoyt Esk8 was there, got to see the new Hoyt UAV. Metro Board was there with their new X22 as well. And in general, the vendors were just a really good time. It was awesome to get to talk to all of them in person, meet some people I've talked to online in terms of vendors. And yeah, the other thing that was awesome about having vendors there is that most of them were allowing you to demo their boards. And you were able to demo these boards on the track. So this is one thing I think we can improve for next year is the board demos. All the vendors were outside, and I think that was great because you can literally just ride their board from the booth straight onto the racetrack. But I think there should be an additional area where we can demo boards out, because sometimes the track itself isn't necessarily the most friendly area to demo a board when there's people trying to race hard and stuff like that. So I think maybe a portion of the parking lot could be set aside for demoing boards, because it's just a little bit more friendly of an area to do that. So maybe an improvement for next year. But getting to demo boards is awesome. We had the UAV for demo. We had all the boards from Voltaic Motion for demo. You were able to try out other people's boards, and it was just a really good time in terms of testing out new things. And I think next year there will be a lot more vendors with a lot more boards to try out. And it's just great for everyone, because most of the time you don't get a chance to try these things out before you purchase. So yeah, in terms of vendors, there was a great amount of them there for a very first year event. And next year should be even bigger. I think there was a lot of vendors this year that said, oh yeah, we'll see if we want to go, and then they didn't come through. And then they're like, oh, we'll be there next year. So I think Mike is probably already going to start securing vendors for next year. And that would be super awesome to see people like maybe X-Way or Meepo or some of the other Chinese companies having a representation at an event like this. And you know, getting to meet some of those people would be super cool. Getting to try out their boards would be fun. And it's just better for the Esk8 community as a whole. Lots more people to attend, sharing the passion and fun part of Esk8. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about real quick was the actual group ride. So the group ride is kind of separate from the event, and it was after the event ended on Saturday, and we met at 8 p.m. at a parking lot down by the Vegas Strip. And this was run by SoCal Legend and Shredlights. I'm not sure exactly what role Shredlights had in it, but I think either they sponsored part of it or something like that. So big parking lot down by the Strip, and we had everyone meet there. I would have to say it was nearly 150 people. There were definitely people from just Vegas in general that came to ride with us as well that didn't attend the event, which is completely fine. I think Las Vegas Esk8 riders on Facebook advertised their event a little bit on their social media streams, and that is super good because it made an awesome experience for everyone. Now, riding on the Strip is no beginner's task. The Strip is a very hostile place towards Esk8 and a lot of different PEVs in general, because it is extremely dense in terms of cars, traffic, potholes, cracks, and just chaos in general. So the fact that we had so many people actually was a huge benefit to us, because we kind of made our own traffic. And with Vegas being the way it is, there's already a lot of traffic on the street, so hundreds of cars are already there. And while we did cause a little bit of traffic, I can't imagine it was that much worse than it would have been with the cars on their own. So I would like to say that most people were responsible on this ride. You're always going to have people on large group rides like this that either get hurt, behave irresponsibly, or piss off drivers. So unfortunately, all three of those things did happen, but you know, it's just part of having a gigantic event like this. Overall, riding on the Strip was one of the coolest things I've ever done. Getting to ride with all these people on such a colorful and lit up place on just an area that you're not normally going to be able to ride on. It was a really cool experience riding through the city, and I definitely will remember this for a long time. So I don't know what the group ride is going to be like for next year, but night rides are an awesome thing, especially if you have lights, and it's very unique experience that a lot of people will not get to do again. So thank you to SoCal Legend for setting up that ride. I thought it was super awesome. Fortunately, the guy that got hurt is doing okay now. And yeah, ride was great. Good time for all. And hopefully we'll have another cool one next year. Maybe we'll try a different route. I have no idea what exactly is in store, but it was a great time. All right, so there's one final thing that I want to talk about, and that's a combination of the prizes for the event and the price. I got a hot take from somebody online that attending Esk8Con was just paying for a group ride. And I'm not even going to try and get into exactly how wrong that is, but let me just give you a little bit of a breakdown on what you're paying for here. So first of all, you're paying for the venue. The venue definitely was not cheap. I don't know how much Gene Woods charges for private events like this, but we pretty much had the entire thing rented out for the whole day, minus the inside, and that definitely comes at a cost. In addition, we had the racetrack, which I think, don't quote me on it, but I think the people that went on the racetrack had to have the race pass to even get on the racetrack, but maybe only the people that were actually racing needed to pay for the race pass. I don't really 100% remember, but anyway, the racetrack is another huge expense. I know some tracks can go up to like $1,000 an hour depending on the place. I have no idea what the deal was for this one. I assume that there's some sort of package thing, but definitely not cheap. So you're paying for the ability to go on a racetrack and experience this whole area with vendors and a parking lot to demo boards out and everything like that. So definitely unique, something you're not going to get all the time. And personally, I think the price was completely worth it. So to add all that value in, on top of the fact that the group ride is free, I just don't understand how someone can come up with the idea that paying for Esk8Con is paying for a group ride. It just doesn't compute for me. I was perfectly happy paying the price, and I think a lot of people didn't really care either. So hopefully the tickets for next year stay the same or are a little cheaper. We'll just have to see. It depends on the amount of people, it depends on the venue, depends on a lot of things, but hopefully they stay reasonable. Now, the prizes. So there was a bunch of raffles that were held at this event. These prizes ranged from AT wheels to Caguamas to some bearings, some protective gear like a jacket and a Nobleman Tech helmet, a Hoyt puck. There's a whole bunch of different prizes spread throughout there. Every person at the conference got 2 free tickets per day. There's a separate raffle each day, and if you wanted to, you could buy additional raffle tickets for $1 a piece, and those were at the concession stand. So I think the raffle went really well. There was a lot of different things for raffle, and I think next year, with more vendors and with more sponsors, that we might be able to have even cooler things in the raffles, maybe a complete board or something like that. A lot of people won stuff, and I'm sure they were happy with their prizes, but you know, there's always room for improvement. The other thing that we had was prizes for the race winners. So first place in all 3 classes got a complete board, which is awesome. And then second place and third place got some wheels and bearings, something like that. So for the first place winners, there was an Evolved Stoke and 2 Ecomobile ET2s. Now, the winner of the Pro got to pick which one he wanted first. He ended up picking the Evolved Stoke, and then the other 2 got the same thing. So congrats to them for winning. I think the prizes were great. There is definitely room for improvement in future years for better boards, more varied stuff to pick from. I don't know. I think the prizes were good, but it's kind of diminishing returns when you already have a race board or something like that, and then you win a board that's lesser. I don't know. Maybe that's just my thinking, but I think there could be room for improvement on the prizes, but they were still pretty cool to see. So, all in all, the entire conference was a massive success in my opinion, especially for a first year. I would say that there was probably about 120 or so attendees, and then there was 12 to 15 vendors. I can't remember exactly how many there were, but super awesome experience. Getting to meet tons of people that I only knew online was really awesome. Getting to hang out with lots of friends in like-minded, awesome activities, and getting to race on a track. It was just a really great experience. I don't have any complaints about it at all. Well, actually, there's one thing. It was a little hot. It was like 90 degrees, but you know, it's close to summertime, and we got unlucky with heat wave. that's just something that happens. So I wasn't really too bothered by it, but it was a really great time overall, and I hope you guys will take the time to attend next year. A lot of people heard about this event late, so next year I think it's going to be a lot bigger. And I heard that we will probably, if we're at the same venue, that we'll probably have the indoors as well, and maybe put all the non-board vendors inside and then put the board ones outside so you can ride it onto the track. I don't have too much else to say. Awesome event, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this recap video. I know I went kind of long with this, but I just had a lot to talk about because I was super positive about this event. So I will see you guys next time. Stay safe, keep on riding, and peace out.